Hey guys, welcome back and happy hump day. Thank you guys all so much for all of the likes, shares, comments, and feedback. It seriously means so much to me, and it makes this whole process that much easier with your guys' support, so thank you. I've also decided to create a website, which I will link right here and below. It is mostly going to be an afterthought of all the videos that I create. For example, the blog post that I have up now is about last week's video about where I found my inspiration to start this YouTube channel, and I'm going to answer some questions and comments from you guys like, hey, did you take a shot before filming? Or hey man, why were you wearing so much blush? And were you reading a script when you were filming? And the answer is no to all of them. I was just really nervous. More details you can read. On to this week's video. For this week's video, or should I say videos, I'm gonna be doing something a little different. There's gonna be 3 parts. This is part 1, and I will be talking about how I found inner peace with the help of rocks and a road trip. The second and third video will be about the road trip itself. So the second one will be day 1, and the third one will be about day 2 and day 3. So actual footages from when we were on the road. To give you a little context, this trip happened in the beginning of February. I had just moved home from New York, and I was feeling all sorts of crazy in not a good way. I was really lost again. I didn't really know what to do with my life and my future and my everything. It gave me really bad anxiety. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's just this constant heaviness in my heart. It is a mix of that feeling you get when you're really nervous. You're like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen? And then you're constantly worried. And then there's also a really fat sumo man sitting on your chest. That's kind of how I felt. Which was weird because I felt this for most of my life, but ever since going to New York and kind of, you know, finding my path, finding my way, finding something greater to believe in, it's helped a lot. But I guess when I moved home, it all just came flooding back. And at this time, my good friend Vivian was like, hey, let's go on a road trip. On the outside, I was like, yeah, I'm super down. But inside, I was like, wait. I gave myself a bunch of excuses. I felt guilty. I felt like I needed to get my shit together. I felt like I didn't deserve this trip. But at the end of the day, I sat myself down. I was like, look, there's two things could happen. You could stay. If you stay, you are going to hope that you do all the thinking and figure out what you're gonna do, which, let's be real, never happens. Or 2, you can go on this trip. Who knows what will happen? Maybe you will see some cool things. Maybe you will get a few new perspectives, or maybe you will broaden your horizon, or maybe you will get a fresh new perspective to look at your life. You know, the latter definitely sounded a lot more appealing. So I decided to go. And it was one of the better decisions I've made in my life. As we got to Valley of Fire, which was the second stop we took on our first day, it was as if I left all of my baggage and problems right on the outside of the park. As we were driving in, I started to realize, oh wow, I'm driving in my car with one of my best friends, and we are cruising through this foreign margin landscape with a bunch of red rocks chasing the sunset, which was this beautiful shade of pastels, of blues and pinks and yellows. And in that moment, I just felt so present and so at peace with myself. And that was when I realized I've been spending the past few weeks worrying about things that I had zero control over, which are the future and the past, and neglecting one thing that I do have control over, which is myself in the present. As I'm sure many of you are already familiar with the concept of being present, it's very simple in theory, but to execute on a daily basis is actually pretty hard, because we've conditioned our minds to think about the things we think about and to worry about the things we're constantly worrying about, which more oftentimes than not happen to be things that have already happened or things that have yet to happen. I don't know how many of you do this. I tend to do this all the time. You play out scenarios in your head. You play out, you know, the conversations that you had, the things that you did, and you go back and you think, well, you know, if I could go back, this is what I would say differently, or this is what I would do differently. But by doing this, it doesn't do us any good because those things already happened. This isn't me saying that by being present, I solved all of my life's questions or my life's problems. This is saying by being present and reminding myself what it means to be present and to actually be present and soak up all the wonderful things around me while I was, you know, out being one with the rocks. That essentially helped remove the fat sumo man that was sitting on my chest. It gave me a room to think from a far more calm and clear perspective because I was no longer worrying about what's gonna happen and what has already happened. The cherry on top to our trip was on our way home from Utah. We stopped by Las Vegas for a show. It's not the typical shows you see in Vegas. This is a show that I've been watching for the past 10 years. It's a traditional Chinese performing arts show called Shenyun. Their mission is to revitalize 5,000 years of Chinese culture. While I was watching this show, this is a show that I've seen many, many times already. The experience that I got was so much different because I was so aware and so present that it really made me appreciate the performance and the art and the dance and the music and the singing to a whole nother level that I usually take for granted because I'm just like, oh yeah, they're doing these things. But now that I'm aware, it's a whole nother story. I laughed, I cried, I left feeling so inspired, and this would not have been possible without the help of this trip, which reminded me of being present. Thank you guys so much for watching. Next week's video is going to be about living a minimalistic life, and look out for something over the weekend. I will have a surprise for you. So before you go, this is going to be day 1 of the road trip, and this is day 2 and 3. Enjoy. Okay,